ever thought about, what happened to the turbo button?
Not especially recently, no. I mean, I'm not running a 4-point-something megahertz computer anymore, but go on.
So we were talking about this on the Full Nerd a couple of weeks ago, and I realized I never had a computer with a turbo button. Mine were always full speed. And then we went and did some research, did our own research, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
And we learned that the turbo button for most PC users was actually the turbo speed was actually the native speed of the processor.
Right.
And then when you turned off turbo mode, it slowed it down to like 808.6 speed,
which is 4.77 megahertz. Is that
was
right?
slow. Yeah, it was a lot. It's like you take a 25 megahertz 386 and crank it all the way down to 4 megahertz or 6 megahertz or something.
Yep, 4.77. In fact,
but the thing I've been thinking about, and I can't stop thinking about it, is I have this reset button on my computer.
Oh,
and I would love to be able to switch my Ryzen from eco mode, like their default built-in undervolt, to light some shit on fire. Let's go fast.
Yes.
And that reset button's right there.
It's okay. Is that something you can do on the fly, or does that require a reboot?
It does not require a reboot.
Okay. Oh, because I'm sure AMD software can do that, right?
You can do that with the unfortunately named Ryzen Master software.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same as you can do with the Intel Extreme Overclocker, except for Intel doesn't have machines that they do eco processor modes on because, Intel.
Okay. Well, now do they expose a hardware interface on the motherboard for changing the processor voltage or power cap? Then is the question.
No, this is the sad thing. But a lot of motherboards do have software configurability for the reset button now, because a lot of cases don't have reset buttons anymore. So often you'll have that. You can hook that up to something else.
Yeah. There's also, another trick, not to digress, another trick you can do with the reset button is wire it into the reset CMOS header.
Yeah.
If you don't need to hardware reset, and frankly, it's a good idea to have a hard reset capability. Although I guess you could always just flip the switch on your power supply. I don't know if that's bad or not.
Wait, doesn't your mother? Yeah, you just long press the button too. If you long press the power button, it'll restart the computer.
Sure. But especially if you're doing a lot of configuring that might mess up, or where you might need to reboot and clear CMOS settings, you can wire that switch into that header if you just want to press the button to wipe your BIOS and start fresh.
It seems really high risk though, because I sometimes, like, when I turn on the computer, I'm like, I'm just smashing buttons, and then all of a sudden, boom.
Wait. What are you doing to your computer?
Well, I don't look at it. I just reach down there and start whacking until it turns.
I apply a single fingertip to a single power button, and then we get computing. What is going on there?
Mine's pretty far back there. But doesn't your motherboard have the buttons on the backplane?
This one does, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, but my previous one, the AMD board I had last year, did not.
I think most enthusiast-ish motherboards have that.
You're
these
right.
days. So
this would be more for like entry mid-level motherboards, but that was a $500 motherboard I had last year that did not have that feature, inexplicably. Anyway,
wow.
You were saying.
So anyway, what I really want though, and this is a bad idea, just to be clear, is I want a Stream Deck plugin.
Okay.
That hooks into the Ryzen, the unfortunately named Ryzen Master software that lets me shift modes by pressing a button on my Stream Deck.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Because why wouldn't you want that?
Why wouldn't you want that?
It could be green for eco and red for go fast. And like you can even flip on the PBO there.
Listen, okay, you can put whatever you want on your Stream Deck or any other interface, but there is a requirement here you have to fulfill on top of that.
Yeah, what is that?
You have to install a proper old school 7-segment display on the front of the case that displays what the power consumption is at all times. Like fucking computers have never been as cool as when they had those little what is the name for that type of screen? They're not LEDs. It's like VFD or something.
It's a VFD or did I tell you?
What's that?
Speaking of these kinds of displays, we have the same receiver, don't we? That Sony from like 10 years ago.
Yes, I have it's a STR DN840. I want to say
that's the one. Yeah.
Yep.
So it has one of those displays, one of those it's like a string of it's like a gas version of that.
Yeah, it's got the little 7-segment numbers. I just looked it up. It is the VFD vacuum fluorescent display is in fact the name of the type of screen on old VCRs and receivers and stuff.
Yeah. So here's what is exciting for me. That screen doesn't work on my receiver anymore.
Oh, the same thing happened to me, actually, it turns out.
How'd you fix it?
I took it to a repair shop about 5 years ago and paid upwards of $100.
What, did they just solder a new one in?
I don't know what they did, but they fixed it.
Huh.
But anyway, I've gotten another 5 years out of that receiver, so I decided it was worth it.
Huh. $100 is right at the line at which I would not pay that. But also, I would do the soldering, I think.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, I at the
time,
time,
open.
I wasn't sure I could reliably find the problem, but wow, that must be a common manufacturing defect on that thing.
Well, so, I mean, it's like 10 years old. It's at the edge of what I would expect is like a legal time to have that receiver work.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, most of the time we use the HDMI CEC stuff. So it's not been an issue because I don't ever see the screen.
Sure.
Like I just hit the Apple TV button, it switches to the Apple TV input, it turns on. I don't need to look at it.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing for the consoles. But the Steam Deck doesn't support CEC right now. So when my daughter wanted to play Teardown on the TV and I was like, well, just plug the Steam Deck in, you can play. It didn't switch the receiver input automatically. And as a result, I opened up the thing and was like, wait, it was on for a second there when I turned the receiver on and then it immediately goes away. And I had to turn the knob. It has a little knob with notches one at a time until I heard the sounds of Teardown coming out of the TV.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, wasn't a great experience, I'm going to say. But also, apparently, that's coming in the next major revision of the Steam Deck OS.
Oh,
so I might just try to hold out another couple of weeks and see if we get there.
What if you harvest that screen off your receiver and try to do something fun with it, like put it on the front of your computer?
That's an interesting idea. Welcome to Brad and Will Made a Tech Pod. I'm Will.
I'm Brad.
That was a pregnant pause.
I had a real brain fart there for a second.
Wow, Brad. I mean, it's been a long week. It is Friday afternoon when we're recording this.
It is late. It's like end of day on a Friday. This is not the best time cognitively to do a podcast. For some reason, when you said I'm Will, my brain interpreted that as you saying my name.
Well, I mean, look, next week I'll hit you with an I'm Brad and see if you react. But
I genuinely paused and was like, did he just say I'm Brad? Do I need to call him on this or should I just keep going? Also, I was staring at this vacuum fluorescent display page.
They're pretty good.
And I kind of just want to talk about VFD displays now. But
I had a my favorite one of those of all time was on a Logitech. It wasn't a Logitech when I bought it, but a Squeeze box, which was that one of the first MP3 streaming boxes. And it just had a screen that had like your ID3 tag info on it, your title of the song and the artist. Mm-hmm. It would scroll. It was a real good scroll. And it was like, it was a pleasant light blue color. Like it wasn't like the blue of a blue LED that just kind of digs deep into your soul and makes you want to murder somebody.
It's like pleasantly bright. Like it's bright, but not eye-searingly so. It's kind of like a washed out teal color sort of.
Yeah, it's like a warm blue almost, which I know is a contradiction, but like anyway, it was good. I like those displays. We need more of those.
They look rad.
The other thing you could do is just jam a couple of Nixie tubes on the top.
Oh yeah,
just poke those out of the top of the case.
Oh, I've got a Nixie clock. I don't know if Nixie tube clock. I was gifted it by a very very generous fan of the show.
Oh,
fan of Next. I believe they were on the Nextlander Discord. I can't remember. They may have also listened to this show. I love it. It's one of the coolest looking things I have. I don't know if this is a long-standing project. I don't mean to derail the podcast with this. It's got a pair of mutually reinforcing issues with it that are maybe the most maddening thing I've ever dealt with.
Okay.
And I've actually been thinking for ages about, I took it apart and just looked at the circuit boards. I've been thinking about going in the Maker channel on the Discord for a long time and just posting photos and saying, hey, here's the trouble I'm having with this. How repairable do you think this is? Because it was made in Ukraine. The small boutique manufacturer that made it, I don't think exists anymore for a variety of reasons.
That sucks.
So it's not like I can just like go get it repaired necessarily, unless maybe I found somebody around here. But okay, the clock is insanely fast.
Oh, like the time, it doesn't keep good time?
It gains like probably 5 minutes a month at least.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
Like, mechanical watch territory there.
So like you have to set it every 2 weeks or whatever to keep it reasonable.
Yeah.
The other thing is, so it's got two buttons on it. It's got like change mode and then modify mode. You know what I mean? It's like you hit like you hit the one button to say, okay, now I'm changing seconds. Now I'm changing minutes.
Got
now
it.
I'm changing
Okay.
hours. And then the other button is increment the thing, right? So it's like hit it twice to go to minutes and then hit the thing on minutes until you get to the minute you want. Let me see if I can explain this correctly. Hitting the increment button also now is triggering the change mode button. So if I go to minutes and I want to increment the minutes a few times after 2 or 3 presses, it will then change the mode to hours, and now hours have gotten bumped up 2 or 3 times.
I bet there's a ground somewhere that's jumped or something.
That's exactly it. There's just some electrical connection in there where like
something's touching.
The one button is triggering the other button, but it makes it, and there's a cascading effect. Like, I wish I had a video of me raging trying to set the time on this thing, because
this seems like the kind of thing that's designed to make you absolutely go crazy.
It is absolutely custom engineered to make a person lose their mind, because there's all kinds of settings on there for brightness of the tubes, whether the little blue backlight works or not, like how they blink, how they increment, like all kinds of stuff. And I have it set exactly like I like it. Again, I love this thing. It's amazing. But there's a cascade effect every time you start trying to just change the minutes, because the minutes are the thing you need to change when a clock is fast.
Yeah.
But the minutes are at the very beginning of the chain of then hours, then date, then blink pattern, then brightness, then backlight. And every single one of those gets thrown off when I try to change the minutes, because it cascades from one mode to the next, throwing all of those settings off. And it takes like 20 minutes to change the time and get everything back to where I want it. And again, I love that thing so much. I would like to fix it. I just lack the electrical know-how to do so.
I bet somebody in the Maker channel could help you figure it out.
Yeah, I would love to get that thing repaired and back to full working order, because it looks so cool.
I was while we were between the cold open and now, I went and looked at voltage current meters that you can wrap around the power cable coming out of the back of the PC.
Okay.
So I was like, I could make a screen that has the wattage that's being taken by the PC at any given moment. But then I was like, I don't think I want that information. But do you know what information I do want, Brad?
Sorry, I apologize for derailing so much of this podcast. What information do you want?
I want to make sure that my voter registration is up to date, because we're coming up on an election here in the United States in early November. So we have about 2 months from the time you hear this, a little bit more than that. But you can go to vote411.org, which is a site run by the League of Women Voters that helps you figure out how to check your voter registration, regardless of which state you live in the United States. See if you're allowed to vote, see if you're registered to vote, see if your registration's still good. And again, it's vote411.org. And we would ask you to go do that now if you live in the United States. Weirdly,
depending on where you live, for any number of reasons, it might be fairly urgent that you go check and see if you're still allowed to vote or not.
Yeah, there's a lot of shenaniganery happening right now. So make sure you're registered to vote. Anyway, that's it.
Yeah.
Brad, this week we're going to talk. We got a twofer for you today.
Maybe
a threefer.
Are we going to make this decision on the fly? We were going to do a twofer, and then we were like, one of these might take up most of the episode.
I think both of these could be a full episode. We thought these were both going to be smalls, and then they ended up being bigs. But I think let's re-record this intro if it ends up being a twofer, maybe, and instead of a threefer.
And sometimes I think it's fun to just pull the curtain back and let people see how the sausage is made a little bit.
Look, that's fine too. So
let people see how the boar's head ham is sliced.
Nope. Don't want to go in the meat coated room. Don't read that article if you like cold cuts, by the way.
I'm going to straight up stop buying deli meat.
Look, there was a period, another digression. I used to buy turkey breasts all the time, and I would roast them myself, and then I have a slicer and I would slice them myself, and then I would have my own cold cuts. It was delicious.
I think that is the way to go.
Yeah, it was a lot of work.
Yeah, I believe that.
Also making things like pastrami and corned beef pretty challenging.
I wouldn't do that. But like a rotisserie chicken, or you can make sandwiches out of non-cured deli meat.
Yeah, but what if you like the cured deli? Anyway.
Well, I love it, but it's, there's maybe multiple reasons now it's not the best for you anyway.
So we're going to start this potential trifecta of topics with a little thing that we've been talking about for a while now called passkeys.
Yes. Quite a while.
I
think was it last year sometime that this started becoming the hotness in authentication?
They've been on the rise for a while. People are, and by people I mean Apple, Google, Microsoft, your password manager companies are all kind of pitching them as
the arbiters of authentication.
Yeah. This is the most alliterative intro we've ever done. They were pitching these as, hey, we've got this new thing. It's like a password, but it's better for you to log into your places. What passkeys are is they're password. That's exactly what they're password replacements that work using FIDO standards, and those are the standards that are used in a bunch of like hardware tokens that your job may make you use to sign into your work corporate accounts and stuff like that.
Yeah, I had to look up FIDO fast identity online. I think I've seen the term before, but I didn't realize it's should I read the AI overview?
No, don't give the machine its due.
Should we test them? An open standard for authentication that uses public key cryptography to replace passwords with more secure logins. That sounds like what I know FIDO to be.
That's what FIDO is. So FIDO, for example, like YubiKeys, which are the I think of them as the kind of de facto hardware token. Yeah. FIDO 2 is one of the standards that they support.
Right. But I guess the key there that I didn't realize at least is that FIDO is an open standard that is consistent across devices and login methods.
Yeah. So and passkeys use the FIDO standards to do this. The gist is, and this is a little bit of a simplification. We don't need to get into the cryptographic weeds, but when you sign up for a site, the site creates your device creates a cryptographic key pair, meaning a private and a public key that's bound to that web service domain. So say I'm going to twitch.tv and I need to create a passkey for Twitch. It says, Will's email address is will@techpod.content.town. And we're going to make a key pair that is attached for will@techpod.content.town that's bound to this web service domain, twitch.tv. Perfect.
Yeah.
Your device registers the public side of that key pair with the service, and then it keeps the private key. This is just like everything from like PGP on how cryptographic key pairs have worked for all eternity. The math is different, but the idea is the same.
Yeah. And the idea there, gosh, so I've got a fair amount of experience with this using SSH key pairs, but God help me if I try to explain how it works and get something wrong.
People will yell at you, Brad.
The basic idea, as I understand it, is the public key, exactly as it sounds, is public. Like you can put that on you can skywrite it, you can drag it behind an airplane if you want. The whole idea is that part is public, and the private key, when you authenticate with the private key, you are not providing the private key to the remote endpoint. You are cryptographically proving that you have it, I believe is how the math, the cryptography works out there. Is that you're providing a response that does not contain the private key, but
you're providing a token that is generated by signing the public key with the private key.
Right. So you're essentially proving that you have the valid private key without actually having to expose the private key.
Yeah. So when you do this, when you create this account on the site, that thing is the passkey. That private key, public key pair is the passkey. Each one is inherently unique, and it establishes a two-way relationship between you and the site service you're using for authentication. So if you think about when you go to twitch.tv and you type in your username and password, that's a one-way authentication, right? Twitch knows that that's you because you have some information and you have some private information, but you don't actually know that that's twitch.tv unless you're really careful and you always check the URL and stuff like that. Somebody could make twatch.tv
or Twitch.
Yeah.
I mean, well, the I is not capitalized, but I'm trying to think, but how would you make point taken.
It doesn't matter. The point is they can make a website that looks just like Twitch, send you an email that says, hey, you need to sign into your Twitch account. You click the link in the thing, you put your username and password in, and then all of a sudden they have your username and password for Twitch, and Twitch thinks that they're you, right? Mm-hmm. This is the basis of every phishing attack ever, or not every, but this is how phishing attacks work.
It's a common vector.
So when you try to log onto a site that doesn't have your public key, the passkey is not going to work. It's going to say, hey, man, these people don't know you. And because that public key, private key pair is site specific, no one else should have that public key pair. Now, if Twitch has a problem and their store of the public keys gets corrupted or gets attacked somehow and they lose access to those, A, they've probably done something wrong on the configuration end of their passkey implementation, but B, you're going to have to make a new passkey the next time you log in, which is fine. this is why Microsoft and Apple and Google and all the big providers are saying, hey, this is more secure. It also means you don't have anything you have to remember, because this key pair is stored on your device, right? Whether it's your Windows machine or your Mac or your iPhone or your Google Android or whatever.
Yeah, and that's how people use it in the kind of open source terminal, Linux world. When you're SSHing with these things, most people just don't use a password there. Like they literally just sort of click or type the connection and they just go. Like it fully replaces any kind of active authentication. I think in the case of passkeys, which you're about to describe, it's more secure than that. Like they're not saying, hey, you should just be able to open a website on any device and just get into it with zero friction. Well, like you still need to access the passkey with some auth.
Yeah. And I mean, I think the assumption on, for example, the SSH example that you used is that if you're a Linux sysadmin, your login to your Linux machine should be secure and you should lock it when you're not there. Right. But that's trusting the user to do the smart thing. This doesn't trust the user to do the smart thing. This requires some sort of local authentication. So, for example, if your passkey is stored on your phone, it's going to ask you for a face or a finger biometric swipe. It might ask for the passcode, or if you're using, say, a hardware FIDO key token, which you can also use as a passkey, it will ask you to touch the physical device to make sure that you have it. I don't understand why the FIDO key touch is a safe thing. It seems like anybody could do that, but whatever. You have to have the physical key, which presumably you should keep safe.
Right.
You don't have to remember anything to log in. There's no this isn't like two-factor authentication, which two-factor authentication is that something and you bring something, and that something is a machine that generates numbers in a predictable way.
Right.
This is you just have to have this passkey, and the passkey is on one of your devices. Now, it does mean that it's important that you keep the device with the passkeys pretty locked down. If your phone's password is 11111 and somebody steals your phone, then they probably are going to be able to get access to all your passkeys pretty easily, right?
Yeah. Yes. How do you deal with a lot of PIN numbers across various devices and services? Like I've got a pretty good memory. I remember a lot of passwords. I know all my bank account and credit card numbers. Like I know a lot of numbers, but for whatever reason, I think I've just hit saturation on PIN numbers. Pins. Somebody's going to call out the redundancy on PIN number anyway. You know what I mean? Like I have to stop myself from just using the same PIN on like my iPhone, my authenticator, my like Signal, anything that wants a PIN. I have to force myself to come up with another PIN because I just don't want to keep remembering PINs.
I'm really uncomfortable with this conversation, Brad, and would like to move on.
All right.
I use the same one everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's a struggle. Nobody knows your PIN. You're probably fine.
It's long. But yeah, I use the same one everywhere.
I get the reluctance to talk about stuff like that in public, but consider it a public service announcement for people to know that they shouldn't do that. B, let it motivate you to go change your own behavior.
Well, so the interesting thing I was going to say is that I actually don't have that many pins anymore.
Yeah, it's not that many. But
I don't really use an ATM anymore, ever.
Yeah.
I don't, my Windows, I have a Windows pin, and then I have a Windows pin, a different one for like shared computers so that like my daughter and wife have one that they can log into, but the one that's my main computer, my main laptop has a different pin on it. And then my phone uses I have the serious pin and the non-serious pin, I guess. Yeah, and the serious pin is the same everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, I guess in fairness, we just named basically every pin number I have. It's like phone, ATM, like Signal and WhatsApp use them. My two-factor authentication app uses one, and that's kind of it. But still,
I don't use a PIN for my two-factor authentication app. I that's all in 1Password, so I just use the big long 1Password passphrase for that.
Sure,
and then my hardware keys do have a hardware PIN, but they get the serious one.
Sure. The authenticator app I just moved to requires a PIN, but we'll get to that.
We'll talk about that in a minute. So the big benefit is you don't have to remember anything. This is great, especially for people who don't like passwords. It's pretty easy to use. The bad news is if you lose your phone, you lose access to your phone, that information's gone. This is why if you set up passkeys, it's probably really important to make sure that you have your recovery information on those accounts set up properly. So if you have to do the forgot password dance, you have that option.
Yeah.
It also means that just like when you're setting up two-factor, it is vitally important that you save the recovery codes and you put them someplace that's safe, either in a password manager Worst case, chuck them in a folder in Dropbox or OneDrive or something like that. Just put them someplace where you can get to them and where they'll be reasonably safe. The other thing to know is that typically passkeys, one of the reasons Microsoft and Google and Apple and everybody are trying to get you to sign up for passkeys is that they are a retention mechanism, I think, they make it more difficult to switch away from their products. Because if all of your passwords are stored in your Microsoft Cloud account, it's going to be harder for you to switch to Mac or Google or whatever, should you get such a desire to do so.
Yeah. And to be clear, it's not because it's especially difficult, more just because it's laborious, right? I mean, it's a fair amount of work, as I just touched on, as I'm switching authenticator apps. I know from experience, it's a fair amount of work to change all these accounts over. But what you're saying is it's not impossible, right? It's not like they are truly locking you in. It's more just they're relying on most people not wanting to put the work in to make all those changes.
I honestly, I don't think it's an intentional, hey, we can get them on the passkeys and we'll have them forever,
right,
kind of thing. I think it's just like one more thing in the list of a million things that makes it harder to change platforms. To that end, when you're setting up passkeys at the beginning, it's important to think about how and where you're going to use them. So, for example, you probably don't want to set up all your passkeys exclusively on your Windows desktop PC, because that's not a device you're going to have with you all the time. Right. The device that if you're likewise, you may not want to put them on your phone, because then you're tied to that phone forever and ever. This is why it's just for the same reason I like password managers for saving your passwords and your 2-factor authentication stuff. I like putting the passkeys in the password manager. Most of the big password managers support passkeys now, like 1Password and Bitwarden. And I didn't look at LastPass because probably don't use LastPass. But anyway, those provide a multi-platform solution because they provide clients that will transfer the passkey, bring the passkey to different platforms, regardless of your device. And then, for example, if you're on Windows, you don't have a biometric tag, you'll type your Windows Hello PIN to unlock them, stuff like that.
Right. Real quick before we move on, are you able to just like walk me through what a typical login process looks like? Is it similar to the types of like the old Blizzard Authenticator or the Steam app where you try to log in and then you get a notification on your phone? Like, does it actively ping you saying like, hey, you've got a login request, you need to authenticate here?
So I store mine in 1Password, and when I get it, it just says, hey, this site wants to log in with a passkey. Do you want to do it? And then you authenticate with Windows Hello for 1Password or your face on the phone, and it just signs you in.
Okay.
It's really easy.
Yeah, that's okay. That's exactly how like Steam and the old Blizzard one work.
It's I would say it's one step easier than Steam, because with Steam you don't have to do I guess I always use the QR code login for Steam these days. I don't do the old Steam card style one anymore. But it works. It's not even as involved as, say, the Microsoft Authenticator thing, where it's like, hey, which number is on your screen? You have to pick the right one.
Yeah.
Now, if you are trying to log in to a device that you have to an account that you have secured with a passkey on a device that doesn't have that passkey, which happens, right? I'm sorry. Can you say that again? Okay, so if say you're using a device that doesn't have the passkey for the site that you're trying to use on it, right? Mm-hmm. But the passkey's on your phone. How do you access that? You hit a button that says, hey, the passkey's on another device, and it pops up a QR code, and you aim your phone's camera at the QR code, and then it opens up your password manager or your device's passkey in the chain, in the security chain, and it says, do you want to log in here? And you say yes, and then it face IDs you and you log in. This is why I think the phone, and ideally the phone with the password manager, is the right place to save these. So then they're more readily, because if you do that, then you open up, you have your password manager on your PC, and you don't have to open the phone to do the login and all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And as far as all of your passkeys being centralized on a device that is small and somewhat easily lost or stolen, if somebody gets a hold of your phone, you are just at that point, you're just relying on your standard authentication on the phone, like biometrics or whatever, to not let them get in. And
that's it.
Because if it were not for those types of authentication, they could just wantonly log into all of your sites, right?
Well, I think for most people, the phone is probably their most secure device.
Yeah. That's fair.
By default, both Google and Apple encourage people to put passcodes and use the face login and the finger touch ID and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So yeah. So I guess what's the best practices, right? The best practice is, I think you want to probably store all of your passkeys on one device, like as a matter of course. My first choice would be to pay 1Password or sign up for Bitwarden or something and use use a password manager to keep all of your passkeys synced up across all of your devices. If you don't want to use a password manager, which I know some people feel that way, I would use the phone for your passkeys, and know that when you change phones, you'll probably have to change. If you want to, sorry, not when you upgrade hardware, but if you want to change from, say, Android to iOS or iOS to Android, you'll have to reset up all of your logins for all of the devices, all of the accounts that use passkeys. Yeah,
there's not like some standardized export from one to the other.
There might be, but it feels hinky now.
Well, and then that is an example of something the vendors absolutely would not want to implement, because that would make it a lot easier for you to jump ship to the other side.
I mean, it's when I tried to figure out how to do that, I couldn't find clear instructions, and I spent a fair amount of time reading about it. And then once you log in once, you can check the box that says, "Hey, don't make me log in again," and then you're subject to the rules on whatever site you're using about how long. Like a Google accounts for your domain, a Google account will every 2 weeks prompt you to put the passkey in again.
Yeah.
The other thing that's weird about this is passkeys. The other way to approach this is just to save the passkey on all of your devices. So you can do that as well. So once you log in.
Interesting. I was waiting to ask that question, but I just assumed the answer was no, that they would lock you out of that.
It seems like, at least with the Google accounts that I've tried it on, when I logged into, say, for example, when I logged in with Firefox and when I logged into Chrome to one of my Google accounts that uses a passkey, I logged in with the phone. And then it said, "Hey, do you want to save a passkey on this device?" And at that point, it prompted me with the 1Password, the 1Password prompt to add a new passkey, and it would have let me save another passkey for that same account. Because all you're doing is doing an authentication token that says, "Hey, you're me. You're Will Smith."
Oh wait,
you're this person.
I'm sorry. We're talking about. I mean, I don't know how much insight you have into this. We're talking about cryptographically different key pairs on different devices. That you're not talking about copying the same key pair to other devices. That's what I thought they would disallow.
I do not know what it was doing behind the scenes,
right?
But I know that it was offering to let me save a passkey on the device that did not have one.
Okay. The reason I ask is because with SSH key pairs, they're just files, and you could literally just copy the same private key to as many machines as you want, which is probably a terrible idea.
But yeah, so I don't think so. If you think about it, the device that didn't have the passkey at the start there wouldn't have had access to the private key. So there's no way for it has to be a new key, a new passkey.
Right.
So all it's saying is you can have multiple passkeys the same way you could have multiple hardware key fobs that let you log into the same website. So you have a backup if you need one.
Sure.
Like, they don't seem bad if you use multiple browsers, if you're a non-standard, if you're not using the most default kind of version of computing. Like, if you use multiple browsers, you use multiple OSs, you use multiple phones, it gets more complicated. But for like, if my parents were like, "Hey, should I be using these passkey things?" I'd say probably, yeah, just save them on your phone.
Yeah. And when you say, to be clear, when you say save on your phone, you're talking about whatever facility is built into the OS on your phone. Like, what is it on iOS? Yeah. Is it Keychain?
There's the Cloud Keychain,
Cloud,
iCloud Keychain, I think is what it's called.
Right.
On Android, there's a similar feature.
Right.
It's I would not use the one that's built into your browser, although on Chrome that probably ties into the Android Keychain.
Right. On
Windows, they want you to use the one that's built into Windows. That seems like the least valuable thing in the world to me. However, if your intent is to have multiple passkeys for one passkey for each device, that's probably fine.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, if you were to want to use the Windows key store, I assume they probably have an app for phones now.
I'm sure they'll have an app for your phone. That's the last thing I want to install.
Oh yeah. No, I wouldn't either, but I just, if for whatever reason you really want to be based on Windows, I'm sure they have some mobile solution, since Windows Phone is no longer a thing, RIP.
Yeah, never forget.
Yes.
So yeah, that's it. That's passkeys. If people have questions, I guess feel free to send them into techpod@content.town. We'll tackle them on the Q&A.
Yeah, thank you for the explainer. I've wondered for a while what was up with passkeys, and then when I read through these notes, I was like, oh, it's just like SSH key pairs. Okay, now well, not fully, but I definitely basically understand what this is.
Well, they sanded the rough edges off so that you don't have to have a text file with all of your cryptographic important stuff.
I don't have to pick the algorithm that I'm generating my key pairs with. Like, don't use RSA anymore. What is it? ED25519 is the one now everybody likes.
Most of my stuff's inside the firewall, so I don't do encryption on SSH inside the house.
I know. I'm ultra paranoid. You were talking about paranoid. Not only do I have SSH, not only do I have key pairs set up, I also still require a password.
Oh, wow.
Although, actually, that was something that I should mention, not to talk too much about that specific context of this subject, but that is something you can do when you run SSH keygen to spit those keys out. You have the option of giving the key pair a passphrase. Yeah. Which is essentially a password to unlock the key pair. Yeah. And that's kind of exactly where like the biometrics would come in on your phone. It's the same thing of authenticating to authenticate with the key pair, basically.
It's exactly the same idea. Yeah. Yes. And I think the big takeaways, the TLDRs for this are still make sure you save your recovery keys, make sure you have email address. If you're somebody who's being attacked and are at risk of being phished, like a government person or something like that, you probably have smarter people than us telling you what to do. But having a phone number attached to your recovery stuff is often a bad idea because the phone is typically the easiest thing to get control of. Yeah. Anyway, we did an episode talking about all that stuff years ago now, but I'm happy to answer other questions about this. I think it's an interesting topic. I think it's, from what I was able to tell, I'm not a security person, but the general vibe on the security blogs that I read about this is that it's a good implementation, that it solves a lot of the problems with two-factor, in that it's unwieldy and you have to have this thing that generates numbers for you. Yeah. For normal people. Yeah, you're kind of winning me over with this. Like, I'm starting to feel a little outdated with my setup, which we'll describe in a second. I was going to ask one more question. Yeah, hit me. Might be a dumb question. Also, I'm sure every service probably handles this differently. What happens to your password? You still technically have a password in their system, right? I assume, even though you're not actively using it anymore. So when I set it up on a personal Gmail, that's my locked down one, it kept the password. It kept the the two-factor stuff is gone now. So the password remains, the two-factor is gone. The passkey is now how I log in with that account. So, or a hardware key is the backup. So of what use is the password if you now have to use this? I don't know. Let me see if I can log in with the password right. We'll forget it. Let's do it live. Yeah. While you're doing that, I'll just say, like, it gets a little unwieldy with certain accounts. Like the Microsoft account, for example, is the one that comes to mind, or I guess Google does the same thing. You can just kind of list as many login methods as you want, you know? Like, they'll ask for your phone number, they'll ask for a password, they'll ask for a two-factor app or an authenticator app. Now they'll do a passkey, and like, you can kind of use any of those, right? Yeah, to a certain extent. It depends. Like, that's a security setting you can turn on or off on the Google side. I don't know about the Microsoft side. There's also concerns with Microsoft. Like, I don't want to have this to sign into Microsoft accounts, right? It's a pain in the butt. They use their own authenticator for Microsoft accounts these days, which makes it a little bit easier. Oh, you can use whatever you want. We'll get into that in a second. Like any standard, like QR code based, time-based one-time password authenticator app will work with Microsoft account. So when I look at my Google account that's set up with passkeys, I have 3 passkeys that I can sign in with, 2 hardware keys, and then the phone. And then I have a password. I have a Google prompt that will log in, that will pop up a Gmail prompt that says, hey, you want to sign in on this device? And then 2-step verification for phones, which I should probably turn off. That's scary. Anyway. Yeah. So you, like, when you're presented with the actual login prompt, you can say, it'll say, hey, sign in with a passkey, or try another way. And when you try another way, it gives you the option of entering your password or using a passkey. Okay. So you can still use the fallback if necessary. But you could turn all that stuff off. I wonder services. I don't know if they'll let you get rid of the password. That seems high risk. Yeah, maybe so.
You're probably right.
It's not. I don't think any of us are ready to let go of passwords all the way yet.
Yeah, probably wrong. I'm not wrong.
Can we talk about Authy real quick?
Yes.
While we're kind of on, because this is now the, well, I don't want to say legacy technology, but it feels like legacy technology to me.
I just said it. I literally just said I'm starting to feel obsolete after that conversation about my setup, which less than 5 years ago was like the bleeding edge recommended way to secure all your
extinct
stuff.
Brad.
I'm still using an authenticator app, the type that has the 30-second, timer and a 6-digit number that cycles every 30 seconds, and you have to provide that number before the timer and it changes over.
Do you not do that in your password manager?
No. First of all, I set it up ages ago.
Yeah.
I used the Google Authenticator for a while, and then I moved to Authy some years ago, and I'm guessing it might be because Twitch was requiring you to use Authy for a long time.
I have an Authy account because Twitch required Authy for partner accounts, yeah.
And those are, I just mentioned TOTP is the term you'll see, which let me triple check that I've got that right. Is yes, time-based one-time password is the little 6-digit number that it's spitting out every 30 seconds.
I thought it was top of the park.
It could be whatever you want it to be.
Okay. But they had a breach, right?
Yes, they had an unsecured endpoint that allowed some hacker group to dump 33 million phone numbers.
Ooh.
Because they require phone numbers. Like, that's the thing. I don't think this is necessary or even standard for the other authenticator apps. They make you make an account, like you said, and they attach your phone number to that. And it's not super clear how much data they got along with those phone numbers that like identifies account or user information.
Oof.
Or pairs that with the phone numbers.
They didn't get private keys though, right?
No, they didn't get anything.
Okay.
According to Twilio, the company that now owns Authy, we're reading from their statement here. While Authy accounts are not compromised, threat actors may try to use the phone number associated with Authy accounts for phishing and smishing attacks.
You know what smishing means?
I'm not sure if I want to know what smishing means. Social engineering attack that uses fake mobile text messages to trick people into downloading malware, sharing sensitive information.
Oh, that reminds me. I got a text from the U.S. Postal Service that says that I have a package
I bet.
that I need to send them a message about, or it's going to be delayed.
Lucky you.
They sent me a text. It was weird. I wouldn't expect. And then the address is a Gmail that I'm supposed to respond to. So who knew? Weird.
Is the security industry vernacular here that phishing is just emails and smishing is social media and text messages? Is that what we're doing?
I guess SMS would be smish.
Yes. So does that mean phishing is just email?
I think phishing is just maybe that's e-phishing now.
I don't know. Anyway, threat actors may try to use the phone number associated with Authy accounts for phishing and smishing attacks. We encourage all Authy users to stay diligent and have heightened awareness around the texts they are receiving.
My awareness is heightened.
So I'm not entirely clear what else was compromised along with those phone numbers, but at any rate, I decided to dump Authy in the wake of this.
I mean, now Twitch doesn't require Authy anymore. You can just use a normal two-factor account. So and I don't know how many other services ever even use this, but Twitch was doing direct integration with Authy where you didn't have to use a TOTP. Yeah.
It would do the thing of your phone would just say, hey, you want to log into Twitch, press here.
Yeah.
And it would go. But it kind of feels like your two-factor authenticator should not have an account attached to it, is my feeling.
Look, there's pros and cons. The benefit of having the two-factor account attached to Authy was that if you lost the device, it was easy to recover.
Yeah, sure.
Which I liked because some of the stuff that I had on my Authy account would be hard to recover without access to a two-factor authentication.
Yes. Well, so the authenticator app I've moved to, although now, again, you've kind of made me think maybe I should just start doing passkeys. Of course, there's also the concern, I didn't even think to ask you about this, that I'm sure plenty of services have not migrated.
There's a lot of
rolled out passkey support yet.
Passkeys are mostly like big giant companies. Like the number of places that support two-factor that don't support passkeys is probably like 90% of the two-factor. Like there's probably 10% of the existing two-factor audience in my password manager supports passkeys at this point.
Meanwhile, the fucking financial industry.
Look, banks are complicated for reasons we don't need to get into here.
Oh my God. Anyway.
Steve from the bank is going to call you when it's time to log into your device.
Anyway, given what you just said about a lot of services not supporting passkeys yet, you're probably still going to need a time-based authenticator app. So I have moved to one called, I guess I'm pronouncing this FAS.
Two-factor is shit. Is that too crass?
I like that. It's 2FAS.com.
Be funny if it was 2FAF
yes.
for what it's worth.
So the thing I was going to say about Authy, about you mentioning the Authy account advantage was that you could recover all your codes if you lost your phone. So this will do the same thing, but not by centralizing an account on their servers. It will just upload some encrypted store to your iCloud account or the equivalent on Android.
Oh.
So it just uses your built-in, like the iPhone's built-in iCloud storage to back up all your stuff that way. And it's not a local thing, but it's not on their servers. It's just in your iCloud. So if you lose the app, you can just pull it all back down that way.
And this is free too, right?
This is free. I guess I'll say, and I actually looked up some like breakdowns on different websites of like what's the best current authenticator, and like a lot of sites seem to like this one. The biggest con I saw was like it's not quite clear what their business model is, but the app is fully open source. Like the whole thing is hosted on GitHub. You can go look at all the code yourself if you want, but I don't know currently what this like company's whole deal is.
I wonder if they're selling into corporate environments.
That's possible. But this seemed like the most recommended and open authenticator app I could find. It's very straightforward, but like you said, it's a lot of work moving all these accounts over. Like I broke it up over a period of like a week. Like I was like, you know what, I'm going to move 4 services a day, and I would spend at least half an hour, 45 minutes in a couple of cases going through those logins, detaching Authy, reattaching a new app. You know. Like it was a fair commitment.
Yeah, it's a lot. Like it's a lot of work anytime you have to do this stuff. So apparently you can update your brand icon to the Too Fast app, and it takes about 3 weeks. So
yeah, they have a browser extension. Actually, I have not messed with that. I don't think I want to. I think I'd prefer all that stuff to just live on the phone, and that's it.
Yeah, I don't mind having to look up that stuff.
Right. Like, in fact, that was the whole reason I wanted to get off of Authy, was I don't want to send anything off of the phone for this purpose that I don't have to.
Well, you use it so infrequently that it shouldn't be something that you need all the time.
Yeah, and not to shill the Apple Watch endlessly, but ever since I got this watch, 2-factor time-based codes are even less of a big deal because they're right there on my wrist.
I never use that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I just let 1Password paste it in.
Oh, it's great.
Because the way it works when you put the 2 factors in 1Password is it autofills the username and the password, and then it copies the 2-factor into the clipboard. So when you go to the 2-factor code page, you just paste it in.
So that brings me to the last subject here as far as switching authenticators. I use Bitwarden as my password manager. And they also, like 1Password, they have this style of time-based authentication built in as well. I kind of wondered if it's maybe a better idea. I mean, I'm sure it's very convenient to have it all in one place, but just for mitigating risk, not having the password and the thing that approves the password sitting right next to each other in the same account felt like maybe a bit of spreading the attack surface out. You tell me.
My feeling has generally been that if somebody gets access to my 1Password, I'm already doomed.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
So, yeah, I mean, I have 2-factor on the 1Password. Everybody that connects to the 1Password has access to the shared depot has a really, really long passphrase. So yeah, yes, that is a concern. Anything that's really important has a hardware token attached to it. So it's not the time-based, it's the hardware token. And anything else is a bank or something stupid that doesn't support anything like that. So
yeah. Anyway, I like you. I have considered moving all of that stuff under the one umbrella. I have not taken the step yet. Maybe if and when I move to passkeys, it'll work itself out.
So, okay, there's 2 topics, Brad. What's our third?
Wait. Oh, you're counting that as
we talked about passkeys. We talked about the Authy breach and you switching over. I'm
sitting right here looking at this doc. The Authy breach is under the security bullet point.
I don't know what you're talking about,
Brad.
Seems
like
it's right like there, even with the passkeys.
Should never have taught you how to unindent the bullet points. I guess the Authy breach is now changing authenticators is now our second topic. We were going to, I think we have actually successfully filled most of this episode with this, and we have a bonus little addendum thing. We were going to talk topic.
What we always plan to do. Clearly,
we'll save this phantom third topic that is actually extremely chunky here in the notes for a different episode, I guess.
Yeah, the notes for the third topic are bigger than the notes for the second topic. So
anyway,
anyway,
for all this, should we say what it is?
No, let them wait.
It's all right, fine. I was edified. Thought it was educational.
We're going to talk about Wi-Fi 7
Yes.
is the topic.
Yeah, it was going to be a deep dive on what's up with Wi-Fi 7 and if you should care and if you should upgrade and etc. Which I'd like to know myself because I still have a Wi-Fi 5 access point.
You are primed for Wi-Fi 7 is the answer.
Yes.
But we'll do it on a soon episode, like next week or the week after, probably.
Yes. But our last bonus topic. This is episode 250 of this podcast.
My understanding is that that's a milestone.
That seems like a nice round number. Also, it didn't quite line up. This is just coincidence anyway, because, there have been weeks when we ran old patron episodes, like we didn't do a numbered episode. But we are, at the time of this posting, we are 11 days shy of the 5-year anniversary of posting the first episode of this podcast.
That's crazy.
So we're at episode 250, just around the 5-year mark.
That it doesn't feel like it's been 5 years, but also it feels like a lot longer than 5 years all at the same time.
Yes, it was September 12th, 2019 was when episode 0 went up.
Did we do an episode 0 that was like here's what this podcast is about? The placeholder one? Is that what our episode 0 is?
Oh, I have closed the RSS. Let me pull it back up.
Is our episode 0 the
our
talking about refresh rates?
No, that was the first thing we recorded, if I'm not mistaken. The refresh rates, the screens episode was the first thing we ever recorded as a test, but it looks like
that's right.
Yes, that was episode 6. We held that one for whatever reason for a few weeks.
We were like, we need to have something in the hopper in case we get busy and can't record.
Yes, that turned out to be a good idea that we should try to get back to at some point.
Yeah, we should record this Wi-Fi episode. We just stay on after the call and keep it rolling.
Yes, episode 0, which I will never go back and listen to because I can't stand to hear myself. But it was our tech origin stories. It was us just talking about where we came from, like our early computers, why we do this podcast in the first place.
That's really funny.
I had a lifelong love of nerdy shit.
Well, I mean, honestly, this started because I used to come on the Bombcast and you and I would go on incredible technology tangents. Mm-hmm. And everybody else in the room, poor Ben Pack would be sitting over there just kind of staring off into space, praying for an early death.
That man just wants to play some Dota. He doesn't give a shit about what DirectX version it's running on.
Yep. Nope. And then like 8 weirdos would be in the chat or would be in the comments, be like, man, I love it when Will and Brad talking to everybody else would be like, shut the fuck up. Don't encourage them. Yeah. So we made a podcast.
Yes. What if we could just talk about GPUs as much as we want?
Yep. And here we are 5 years later.
Yes. So I think we talked about it before. How many episodes did we do in person? It was not that many.
We did episodes in person until I'm going to guess February of 2003, probably.
Was it
2020 rather?
I can't believe how the fuck has that been going on 5 years ago?
We did not start. We did not start doing in person, not in person until the pandemic started. But it was only like 6 months.
Yeah, it was not that much. God, were you really driving up here for 6 months?
Yeah, I'm going to go and tell you at the end of that. But this was the one nice thing about the pandemic is we had to figure out how to record remotely because while I didn't mind driving up there, there's some days that like San Francisco. I guess all cities are like this, but like occasionally there'd be like a street festival or just some sort of traffic fuckery that would mean that instead of it being like a 20-minute Saturday morning drive, it was a 45-minute Saturday morning drive.
Yeah. Or
like there wouldn't be parking in your neighborhood because there'd be something going on in the park or wherever.
Yep.
And yeah, I don't miss that. It turns out.
Yes, I understand that. Were you taking 19th up?
Yep.
Oh God, no wonder. Yeah. 19th is
the worst road in the city.
Randomly a nightmare several times a day.
So just so people know, 19th it's like the west side, north-south through line through San Francisco to the Golden Gate Bridge.
Yeah.
It's 3 lanes each way. It's not separated. It's a street level street with stoplights every block. Mm-hmm. People's driveways are on it. There's street parking on it. It's people are turning right. They don't let people turn left anymore, thank God. But it's like every lane is fraught with peril.
Yeah, it's bad.
Yeah. And then you drive through the park and there's a big zigzag and that always backs up for no reason that I can tell.
Oh God, yes. Yes. It's all bad. And yet if you're going north south through the city, you're inevitably going to end up on it.
Well, it's either that or you take 10 minutes guaranteed. It's the biggest gambling road in the city. Because like if it works out, it's real fast.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't, it's an extra 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you never know until you're there. Waze is it's impenetrable to Waze. So
yes,
I drove 19th every day when we worked in Sausalito. It was terrible.
Boy. Oh God.
Yeah.
In some ways, going remote made things a little easier because I don't think we ever solved the problem of the mic bleed when we were recording in my house here.
Yeah, when we recorded in your house, we used to use my headset mics, they're like broadcast studio headset mics, and you just get a little bit of a, like, now I know how to fix that because we would just put a gate on them. But back then we were using a Zoom H6, I think, and just plugging them in. And I don't know. They, for what it's worth, I don't think our podcast has ever sounded bad.
No.
There are definitely episodes that sounded better than others.
Yeah, that's fair. But God, it's hard for me to think back to the time when we didn't know what a noise gate was, or at least, didn't use one commonly.
We always, I can't remember. We might have just run everything. I might have just synced it up and run it through Levelator back in the day.
Yeah. It's been less than a year since I got off of Levelator.
I think the first one we recorded remotely was episode 26. Come on down to Dongletown.
Okay.
And I shout outs to that E in down, doing a lot of work. This town also has an E.
Right. Yes.
Pretty good.
Oh yeah. Look at that. Discuss their approach to social distancing, working from home, and coping with isolation.
Yep. We might have started before that because I feel like I pulled the kiddo out of school a week before school's closed here.
That's right.
Because I was like, people are getting weird sick. It's not good.
Yes.
Anyway.
It's weird to think this podcast has been almost exclusively a work from home phenomenon.
Yeah. And it's funny. I feel like we've gone up and down on how often we see each other throughout the year. For a while, I was seeing you a lot, like a lot, and then never at all. Mm-hmm. And now, then a little bit for a while there. And now it's back to like twice a year, I think.
Yeah. Well, that tracked pretty closely with my inability to get myself out of the house.
Well, there you go.
Which ebbs and flows. But thanks to you and other friends of the show, like Steve Lynn.
Yeah.
Kind of been getting out and doing some stuff again.
We need a poke and stick is the thing.
Yes. Might hit that last electronics flea market of the year.
That's soon. Is that this weekend or next weekend?
Next weekend, I think.
Okay. I would go to that probably.
Yes.
I got to figure out if I can.
The Vintage Computer Festival, like wet my whistle, or wet my.
I think it's wetted, but I don't know.
My whistle.
I think you wet your whistle, but in past tense, it's wetted probably.
Is that WET or WHET? I can't remember.
That is a truly no one can say. This is if you had asked me if we ranked Windows's before the pandemic, I never ever would have said yes, but we did. That was episode 21.
So that was here?
On your dining room table.
Wow.
Yeah.
No memory of, I remember doing the episode, but no memory of doing that in this house.
No, it's shocking. That was the first one that we accidentally did a twofer.
Yes.
Because we got into it and we got to the end of like Windows XP and we were at an hour and a half or something ridiculous.
Yes. So it turns out talking in a mostly tongue in cheek, but also kind of earnest way about every version of Windows generates a lot of material.
This is why I think we need to do a ranking of things you can plug into your computer. I think that's I've been thinking about it. I think that should be the next one, because when we did the list of most impactful technologies, I've done that. I think we did one of those here too, right?
Yes. Well, in our case, it was a specific best innovations in PC building or PC operations. It was things like USB or soft power switches or toolless cases.
That was a good episode.
That's not bad.
We did best technologies at Maximum PC once, and it resulted in a week-long argument in the conference room.
Wow. And
like 10, 15 sheets of sticky pads stuck up on the walls everywhere while we decided what order things went in.
That's pretty good.
It was pretty good.
I like doing rankings, and I would love to hear people's ideas for other rankings, or if you really don't like rankings, let us know that too. But
yeah, rankings are fun. It's a good excuse to talk about stuff we don't normally get to talk about.
Yes. And it's a good excuse to just let your extreme nerd flag fly, I guess I would say, like where else can you go that deep on something that meaningless in a way that lets you just pull every bit of minutia in your head out?
I realized we forgot thumb screws on the PC building innovations one.
Did we?
I don't think we talked about thumb screws.
Shit, man, that might have
to go back and redo that.
That might have won.
Yeah.
But yeah, the reason I ask for people's ideas on rankings is shouldn't admit this, but I think we screwed up and did the best possible ranking episode as our first one.
Yeah, we absolutely did.
Like we did, ranking Windows hits the exact sweet spot of just serious enough, but just stupid enough.
Well, and the problem is I don't think either of us have a lot of experience with early Mac OS, enough experience with early Mac OS to have informed opinions.
Yes. Like if I had the experience, I'd love to rank like all operating systems. It's like OS2 Warp is better than Mac OS System 7 or whatever, but
there's something really like the old Game of the Year podcasts that you all used to do at Giant Bomb were among my favorite. Like, hey, here are people making incredibly like here are people just putting down the flag for a thing that they loved.
Yep.
And I love that. I love that. And I think the rankings give us an opportunity to dig back into that energy again.
Yeah. Yeah. That was always the key is you have to both recognize that it's all meaningless and then still get way more serious about it than it deserves.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I'll like the classic example was the year that Skyrim and Saints Row the Third came out.
Let's not.
Oh no! But were you on the wrong side of that one? I don't even remember.
Well, what do you consider the wrong side?
Well, which game won?
Skyrim won.
Yeah, which game should have won?
I feel that history has vindicated me thoroughly.
You thought Skyrim should win?
Millions of people still play Skyrim to this day.
That's just because Saints Row is owned by an ambiguous multinational corporation.
Saints Row was a quite funny and totally middling open world game.
Oh no.
It was a totally fine, if but unremarkable, open world crime game that was very funny.
Humor needed to come to video games, Brad. Anyway,
now we're relitigating a different podcast.
You're not gonna trap me on this. It's been a fun 250 episodes, man.
Yeah. I'm still learning stuff. I learned what passkeys are today.
Me too. Well, I learned yesterday, but some today too, I guess.
Yeah.
We should do another 250, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. If the people want it,
or we could just shut the whole thing off, call it a week. It's been a good run.
As long as people want us to keep doing it.
There you go. Speaking of people that want us to keep doing it, if you, we are a listener supported show, so we are supported by people who want us to keep doing it. We call them patrons. You can find out more at patreon.com/techpod. Again, that's patreon.com/techpod. It costs $5 a month to join the Patreon. You get access to the Discord. You get access to our Patreon exclusive episode, which we recorded. We talked about, we made notes. I don't think we've ever made notes for a Patreon episode before.
We actually had so many topics. We were like, we need to put these down. And I thought that was a pretty good patron episode. Well, talked about your use of Llama 3. We talked about the end of a non-tech.
Hold on. We did not talk about me using Llama 3. We talked about Llama 3 abusing me.
That was probably one of the best stupid AI stories I have ever heard, actually, to date.
Okay. Thank you.
I actually could not believe it pulled that shit.
I lost my shit last night when it happened to me.
It's rude.
We talked about KB 5041587.
Yes.
We poured one out for an Antec.
Yes, and talked about the end of an Antec. That KB that doesn't stand for knowledge base, does it?
Knowledge base.
Does it really?
KB 5041587 is the 504th 5,441,587th knowledge base article, as far as I can tell.
But why would they name their Windows Update patches after knowledge? Well, I guess they attach a knowledge.
They attach a knowledge base to the
knowledge
patch
base article.
That's where the patch notes are.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, that's the one you really want to get if you have an AMD CPU.
Yeah, particularly a newer Ryzen.
Talked about how I got black and white working for the stream we did today. We talked about some new apps that we are very excited to try. Yeah,
it's good stuff.
A lot of stuff in there.
And you can get access to that by going to patreon.com/techpod. And join the ranks. Thousands. There are literally thousands of you. We appreciate each and every one. But we especially appreciate our executive producer tier patrons, including Andrew Slosky, Paddle Creek Games, makers of Fractured Veil, Jordan Lippett, Bunny Fiend, Twinkle Twinkie, David Allen, James Kamek, and Pantheon, makers of the HS3 high-speed 3D printer. Thank you all so much.
Yeah, thank you.
We will be back next week with another edition of the Tech Pod. Until then, keep on teching. Don't throw your dad into a volcano or kid into a volcano. I don't know. That's all I know about Tekken. Bye.